Hi, I'm Eleanor. My sister didn't invite me to her wedding, and at first I stayed silent, but silence doesn't mean agreement. What they didn't know is I held a truth that could shatter everything. And when I finally shared it, the groom didn't just pause. He left. Ever been pushed aside by your own family? Only to realize you were never part of their plan to begin with? Before we dive in, let us know in the comments. Where are you listening from? And what time is it there? We're listening, too. The guest list didn't lie. I was sitting at my kitchen table, red pen in hand, editing the final chapter of a historical memoir for one of our authors, when my phone buzzed with a new message. I didn't think much of it, just another group chat update or maybe a delivery notification. But when I picked it up and saw her name, my stomach immediately tightened. Hey, guest list is finalized. Had to make tough cuts. Hope you understand. Love you. Tough cuts. I read the message again, then again. The words didn't make more sense the third time than they did the first. My chest tensed as if someone had pressed their palm flat over my ribs. There wasn't even an apology, just a casual dismissal, as if I were some coworker being uninvited from a holiday potluck. I opened Instagram out of impulse. Charlotte had just posted a filtered shot of herself in a lacy white robe, surrounded by bridesmaids holding champagne flutes. The caption read, "Only true family will be." Their countdown begins. Bride tribe only. True family. She didn't even have the decency to hide it. I closed the app and sat back, blinking. The noise of the dishwasher suddenly seemed distant, as though I'd slipped underwater. I wasn't a second cousin from another state. I wasn't some work acquaintance. I was her sister, age 32, and she was 29. I dialed Mom. She picked up right away, her tone too cheery to be innocent. "Hey, sweetheart. Everything okay?" I didn't bother with pleasantries. "I just got a message from Charlotte. She said the guest list is finalized and I'm not on it." There was a pause, the kind that doesn't last long, but says everything. "Oh, honey." She sighed like I was the one overreacting. "It's just a wedding. Don't take it personally." "Don't take it personally," I repeated, my voice tightening. "Mom, I'm her sister. They had to make cuts, Ellie," she said, using the shortened version of my name I hadn't heard since high school. "Budget, venue restrictions. You know how these things go." I pulled the phone away and looked at the screen for a moment, as if I might see some other version of this conversation happening. When I brought it back to my ear, my voice was flat. She invited 50 people. It's a vineyard wedding in Napa. This wasn't about space. Mom's tone dropped into something more scolding. "You're being theatrical. This isn't the time to make it about you." There it was. The Bennett family mantra. Anytime I showed emotion, I was labeled theatrical. "I covered half her rent after her last breakup," I said slowly. "I helped her move twice. I even gave up my spring break 3 years ago to be her emotional support through that disaster of a Vegas trip. And now I don't even get a chair." "She didn't mean anything by it," Mom said curtly. "She probably assumed you'd be busy. It's just one day." It wasn't just one day. It was the day. The one where you look around at who's beside you and say, "This is my tribe." I didn't reply. I ended the call without another word. I didn't cry. I should have maybe, but the hurt was too specific, too sharp for tears. Instead, I sat there in silence, remembering all the times I'd picked up the phone when Charlotte needed something. There was the time she found out her boyfriend had been cheating, and I stayed on FaceTime with her for 3 straight hours while she sobbed into a blanket. The time she totaled her car, and I wired her money for an Uber home. The time she forgot her half of the rent and texted me with a half-hearted, "I'll Venmo you next week." That never came. I had always been her fallback, her invisible backbone, but not her guest. It was around 6:15 p.m. when I stood up from the kitchen table. The last light of the day poured in through the blinds, tinting the hardwood floors with gold. I grabbed my laptop and sat back down, flipping it open and typing without really knowing what I was doing. Solo retreats near ocean quiet. No families, adults only. The results were plentiful. Coastal Maine, Tulum, Big Sur. Maybe I couldn't change the fact that I wasn't invited, but I could decide what I did with that space she left vacant. Maybe it was time I booked a getaway. Not out of obligation, not because someone else needed me, but because I needed air. Charlotte had chosen to treat me like I didn't exist. Fine. I disappear, just not the way she expected. I clicked on a 5-day package in Tulum. Private villa, spa, no distractions, and as I stared at the glowing screen, I whispered to myself with a half-smile, If I wasn't invited to her picture-perfect day, then maybe I deserved one of my own. The things I gave up for her. The kettle clicked off in the background, but I didn't move. I was curled up in the corner of my worn sectional, knees tucked to my chest, phone resting face down beside me like it had personally offended me. Even though the call had ended over an hour ago, Evelyn's voice still echoed in my ears, word for word. Like a scratched record I couldn't stop playing. It's just a wedding. You're overreacting. She didn't mean anything by it. No matter how many times I heard those lines, they still hit with the same dull force. It wasn't the first time I'd been told to shrink myself for the sake of the family's comfort. I had spent most of my adult life mastering the art of swallowing disappointment with a polite smile. The steam from the untouched tea blurred the kitchen window, where the last streaks of sunlight were fading into dusk. I stayed seated, still wearing the same sweater I'd had on since morning. A growing ache settled behind my eyes. Not quite a headache, just grief morphing into something more familiar. Resentment. I leaned back and let my head sink into the cushion behind me. There was a time I would have called Charlotte, tried to reason with her, begged for an explanation. Why not me? Why wasn't I enough to be there? But that version of me didn't live here anymore. Instead, my mind drifted back to another time when Charlotte got everything she wanted while I was expected to understand. I was 19. Columbia had sent me a full ride. Room, board, books, the whole dream tied in a bow. I'd screamed in the backyard when the letter arrived, holding the envelope above my head like it was a golden ticket. Evelyn waited until dinner to say anything. She poured herself a glass of boxed wine and stood by the sink, quiet for a moment before saying, "Charlotte's audition went well." I nodded, still buzzing. "That's great. I was thinking maybe she could come visit me in New York during fall break." Evelyn didn't smile. She didn't even look at me. "She got into the European Dance Conservatory," she said flatly. "It's in Paris. A real opportunity." I blinked, confused. "Wait, I thought they only accepted a handful from the States." "She's one of them," she cut in. "But here's the thing. We can't afford to send both of you away." The room suddenly felt colder, tighter. "What? What do you mean?" "You'll understand," she said like it was already settled. "You're the older one, more grounded. Charlotte's delicate. This is her dream." I felt the breath leave my body. That letter from Columbia might as well have turned to ash. "So I give up mine?" I asked. My voice cracked. Evelyn gave a small shrug. "You're smart. You'll make it work wherever you go." And just like that, the decision was made. I turned down the offer. I enrolled at a local community college, took 2 jobs, one as a receptionist, another tutoring kids who didn't want to be there. Charlotte got champagne toasts and Instagram stories with sparkly Eiffel Tower filters. I got silence. Now, all these years later, the pattern hadn't changed. I got up from the couch and walked into the kitchen, grabbing a rag to wipe down the counters, anything to shake the past off. My apartment was modest but tidy, everything in its place, not like Charlotte's chaos. I spoke to myself under my breath as I wiped a coffee ring off the marble. I didn't even ask for much, just a seat at the table. Not a spotlight, not applause, just presence. I walked to the fridge and opened it out of habit, though I wasn't hungry. Staring at a half-eaten salad and a bottle of white wine I had no appetite for. I closed it again. My phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced at the screen. Charlotte the Muse posted a new photo. Curiosity won. I opened the app and scrolled. Charlotte in a Bride Vibes sweatshirt sitting on a boat in Napa with 5 women, none of whom I recognized. Caption: "Sisters before misters. Can't wait to say yes in front of my whole tribe." My chest burned. Not just at the words, but the comments underneath. Aunt Shelley: "So happy the Bennett girls will be together for the big day." Cousin Drew: "Nothing better than blood bonds." Blood bonds, right? My thumb hovered over the comments section, but I didn't type anything. I wasn't going to beg to be seen. I closed the app, walked back to the table and opened my laptop again. Flights to Tulum, Mexico. Private villa. Adults only. No family welcome. I clicked through options. Heart steady for the first time all day. Infinity pool, spa packages, complete silence. I selected my dates. Confirmed payment. I didn't hit share on social media. Didn't tell anyone. This wasn't about making a point. It was about making a choice. For the first time, I wasn't booking a trip to escape. I was booking it because I deserved to be somewhere I wasn't questioned, guilt, or ignored. I sat back in the chair, closed my eyes for a moment, and said quietly to the room. This time, I wasn't going to be the quiet one who just let it go. The secret I swallowed. I closed my laptop slowly, the confirmation screen still glowing faintly in the dim light of the kitchen. Outside the window, the city had long since dipped into silence, just the low rumble of distant traffic and the occasional bark of a restless dog breaking through. My phone was face down on the counter again, as if even its quiet presence might resurrect someone else's voice, telling me what I should or shouldn't feel. I poured myself a glass of wine, something dry, something that wouldn't comfort me too much. I wasn't drinking to feel better. I was drinking to think. My fingers tapped absently against the glass as I stared into nothing, letting the silence settle. I had booked a trip for myself with my own money without permission, and that should have been enough to make me feel powerful. But instead, it dredged something up. That old weight, the one I had carried for years without even acknowledging it, the one no one ever thanked me for carrying. I didn't want to remember, but memory has its own schedule. 2 years ago, on a Saturday night that should have been uneventful, Charlotte showed up at my door sobbing. Not the delicate, cinematic kind of crying she performed for Instagram followers. No, this was ugly, raw. Her mascara was halfway down her cheeks, and she had a run in her tights. I remember opening the door and blinking at her. Did someone die? She stumbled past me without answering, collapsing onto the couch and burying her face into a throw pillow. I stood awkwardly, waiting for her to breathe in a full sentence. I messed up, she whispered eventually. So bad. I sat down slowly. What happened? She looked up at me like a child caught lying about a broken lamp. I slept with Lucas. My brain refused to register the name at first. Lucas, as in Nathan's Lucas? It was just one night, she blurted, shaking her head. We were drunk. He dared me to kiss him, and then one thing led to another. You cheated on your fiancé with his best friend, I said flatly. Her hands flew up. I know it sounds awful, but I swear it didn't mean anything. I just panicked. It was before we got the ring. We weren't even officially engaged yet. But you were in the middle of wedding planning. She started sobbing again. Please, Ellie, you can't tell him. It'll ruin everything. I'll never recover if he finds out. I didn't know what to say. My mouth was dry. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. I need you to keep this, she whispered. For me, like you always do. And I did. I kept that secret like it was my own. Buried it so deep that sometimes I convinced myself it hadn't happened. Because that's what good sisters do, right? They protect the family name. They patch the holes. They seal the cracks so no one else sees how broken it really is. But the worst part? It wasn't even about love. 6 months later, I saw Lucas at a gallery event downtown. One of my publishing contacts had invited me, and he happened to be there, looking smug and slightly buzzed like always. He sauntered up to me near the charcuterie table and raised a glass. Look who's glowing. Bet you've been working too hard again. I smiled politely, trying to step around him. He moved with me. Relax, Eleanor. I'm not going to bite. You shouldn't be biting anyone, I said, voice colder than intended. He laughed, not taking the hint. Still mad about the whole thing with Charlotte? My expression tightened. I'm not mad. I'm repulsed. He shrugged. She said you'd cover for her. That girl's got game. Honestly, it wasn't even a thing. Just tequila and a stupid bet. I mean, come on. She's hot. Nathan should feel lucky anyone even wants to marry her. I stared at him, stunned. No guilt. No remorse. Just a smirk. Then he leaned in close, voice dropping like it was some grand compliment. You're a good sister. Loyal. I respect that. That word loyal burned through me like acid. Back in my apartment now, I took a long sip of wine and set the glass down hard. The kitchen light flickered slightly, as if the truth alone disrupted the wiring. I grabbed my phone and opened the Notes app. My thumbs hovered over the screen before I began typing slowly, deliberately. June 10th, Nathan, confidential. 2 years ago, your fiancé slept with your best man. I was the one who covered for her. I stopped, stared at the message. The cursor blinked at the end of that last sentence like it was waiting for me to follow through. I didn't hit send. Not yet. But the draft existed. It was out of my body now, no longer festering inside me like rot in the walls of a pretty house. I had kept my silence to protect people who would never protect me. And now that silence was cracking. I closed the app and set the phone face down again, letting out a long, unsteady breath. They counted on me staying silent. I murmured. But silence is an agreement, and I was done being quiet. Who am I to them? By Sunday morning, the city had shaken off its rain. Sunlight filtered through thin clouds and fell softly over the sidewalks of West Seattle, giving the quiet blocks a sort of sleepy charm. I pulled my coat tighter as I walked up the path toward Grandma Clara's house. A tidy white craftsman with navy shutters and a front porch that always smelled like lavender and old wood. I hadn't been here in a while. Not because I didn't love her, but because being in that house always made me feel like I was stepping into a room where ghosts whispered just out of reach. When she opened the door, she blinked in surprise. "Ellie." "Hi, Grandma." I offered a small smile. "I brought those peach muffins from the co-op, the ones you like." She stepped aside and let me in. "Well, now I know something's wrong. You only show up with baked goods when someone's hurt you." I tried to laugh, but it came out stiff. "You're not wrong." She poured tea in the kitchen while I set the muffins on the counter. The smell of chamomile filled the air, but I wasn't here for comfort. "Not really. I assume this is about the wedding," she said after a beat, sliding a mug toward me. I nodded, staring into the tea. She didn't invite me. Her lips pressed together in a way I recognized all too well. Not shocked, not surprised, just sad. She told the world I'm not true family. I paused, watching her face closely. And Mom, she didn't even fight it. Said, "It's not a big deal." Like I'm not a big deal. Grandma Clara sat down across from me, her hands folded over one another with an elegance she never lost, even in her 70s. "I wasn't going to bring this up," she began gently. "But maybe it's time." My pulse flickered. "Time for what?" She sighed. And for a moment she looked impossibly older. "You always asked why things felt off, why you were treated like an outsider in your own family. It's not in your head, sweetheart." She reached for the drawer beside the table, pulled out an old photograph. It was me, maybe 2 years old, sitting on a man's lap I didn't recognize. "That's your biological father." His name was James Harper. He and Evelyn were married very young. Things didn't last. I stared at the picture, unable to blink. "She changed your name after she married Richard Bennett," Clara continued. "Said it was easier if the girls matched, easier for appearances." I couldn't speak. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under my feet, but my body hadn't moved. "I asked her not to," Clara said softly. "But Evelyn always did what was convenient for her. And you? You weren't convenient." Something hot pressed behind my ribs. I didn't know if it was grief or rage or both colliding. "So, I was never really a Bennett. You were never the problem," she said. "You were just the part she couldn't control." I put the photo down gently, afraid my shaking fingers might crumple it. All at once, so many things made sense. Why I was always expected to sacrifice. Why Charlotte got the spotlight, the allowances, the praise even when she failed. Why I was called theatrical for standing up for myself. Why Evelyn never looked at me like her child, only like her burden. I swallowed hard. "Grandma, did anyone else know?" She hesitated. "Richard knew, but Charlotte, she just always sensed it. She used it, weaponized it. That's why she felt justified, excluding you. She's been told her whole life she's the real thing. You were always the afterthought." There it was, that word again. After. Grandma reached behind her and pulled out a sealed envelope yellowed at the corners. She held it delicately like it was sacred. "I've kept this for years. Your mother, your real mother, gave it to me before she died. She said to give it to you if Evelyn ever turned her back on you." I opened it slowly with both hands, the paper fragile beneath my fingers. The handwriting was looping, feminine, and somehow familiar. "My sweet Eleanor, you are mine. No matter whose name they put on your birth certificate. If they ever make you feel like you don't belong, leave. Don't ask for permission. Don't wait for them to see you. Just go and don't look back. You are enough always." Couldn't breathe. The words blurred as tears finally fell. Hot, quiet, not out of heartbreak, but from the kind of grief that comes with finally being believed. I had spent my whole life wondering if I was crazy. But no, I was simply invisible in a house that needed me to be small. Now I was seen by the one who mattered. Even in death, my mother reached across time to give me clarity no one else had dared to offer. The price of silence. By Monday morning, the quiet inside my apartment had settled into something different. No longer numbness, but calculation. The light slanted across the hardwood floor as I sat at my dining table, laptop open, a small stack of printed bank records next to my coffee mug. The emails, the screenshots, the proof. It was all here now. And it didn't lie. I clicked through a folder labeled Transfers Evelyn, then scrolled until I found the exact date, April 8th, 2 years ago. That was the week the oncologist called us with my mother's diagnosis, uterine cancer, the slow, quiet kind that ate away from the inside out. That night, I'd wired $5,000 from my savings to Charlotte's account. She told me Mom needed a specialist, that insurance wouldn't cover everything, and I didn't hesitate. I was already juggling her appointments, managing the paperwork, cooking all the bland food Mom pretended to like. I hadn't asked questions. I should have, because 4 days after that transfer, Charlotte posted a picture of herself from Rodeo Drive. New lips, new brows, new teeth. Standing outside a med spa, flipping her blonde hair over her shoulder with a caption that read, "New me era, glow season." I had confronted her once briefly. It was in the hospital cafeteria. I still remember the taste of dry mashed potatoes in my mouth when I said, "Did you really use that money for Botox?" She didn't even blink. Mom didn't even know. Ellie, what's the harm? She stabbed at her salad like the conversation bored her. She looked fine. You always act like everything has to be so theatrical. That word again, theatrical. I looked down now at the screenshot from that very moment. Her post still up, still public. A timestamp that matched the day after my wire transfer. I moved to the next folder in the stack. Property Sunset A. The apartment where I took care of Mom until the end. The place where I held her hand as she slipped away. The walls still smelled like her lavender lotion the day the lawyer knocked on my door. "Are you Eleanor Harper?" he asked, too polite for what came next. I nodded. He handed me a manila envelope. "Per the revised deed filed by Evelyn Bennett, you are required to vacate within 30 days. Revised deed. I remember standing there in my sweatpants, my mouth dry, thinking it was some mix-up. Mom had promised the apartment would be mine. She wanted me to have stability, peace. But Evelyn had filed an update to the property before Mom passed. Something she claimed was to ensure family interest. That interest translated to her and Charlotte flipping it for $80,000 profit 3 months later. They didn't even tell me. I found out from Zillow. I sat back in my chair now, eyes burning, heart steady. I'd given them grace, silence, space, time. But silence had cost me more than I realized. It had cost me my home, my dignity, my mother's final wishes. I reached for my phone and opened the Notes app. The draft I'd been piecing together all week stared back at me. The message was addressed to one person, the only person who still believed he knew the truth. "Nathan, you don't know me, but I know her. 2 years ago, Charlotte slept with your best man. I didn't tell you because I thought I was protecting someone. Turns out I was just enabling her. And if you're wondering who funded her new me, look back at April 2022. Check the deposits. Then check where she spent it. I didn't sign my name. Truth doesn't need a signature when the receipts speak louder." I opened my browser and navigated to a secure, anonymous email service. Upload file. Attach screenshots. Subject, "Before you say I do." I hovered for only a second before I hit send. There wasn't a burst of relief. No swell of music like in the movies. Just stillness. The kind that follows an earthquake. Not because everything's fine, but because the shaking has finally stopped. I looked back at the laptop, still open on my table. A photo of Charlotte beaming beside Nathan at their engagement shoot glared back at me. Her teeth were perfect, bought. Her life was filtered, bought. Her future based on lies. She carved her life out of lies. I whispered to myself. I just peeled off the label. The message they didn't see coming. I didn't expect fireworks, but I didn't expect silence either. When I woke the next morning, the sky outside was overcast, pale gray light filtering through my curtains. I rolled over, instinctively reaching for my phone. No calls, no texts, no missed notifications. The silence wasn't just silence. It was intentional. I opened Instagram. Nathan's profile was there, but all wedding content was gone. No engagement photos, no countdown posts, no bride and groom to be reels, just a single photo. Him holding a coffee cup on a balcony taken months ago. Nothing about Charlotte. She, on the other hand, had posted 3 times since sunrise. One shot of a mimosa-filled brunch in Napa. The other of her robe embroidered with bride in gold thread. The third a blurry group selfie with her bridesmaids and the caption surrounded by love. "Can't wait to walk into forever. #Bennett Wedding Weekend." I stared at the screen, letting the absurdity settle. Then came the ping. A message popped up from an unknown number. Just 7 words, he saw it. I think you saved him. No name, no emoji, no follow-up. But I knew exactly who it came from. Nathan's best friend, Lucas. The same Lucas who once called me loyal. The same Lucas who started all this chaos with a dare and a smirk. And now he was warning me or thanking me. Couldn't tell. I put the phone down, exhaled, and went to pour coffee. My hands weren't shaking. Not this time. There was a strange calm taking hold, like I'd finally stopped tiptoeing around a house fire and decided to douse it with gasoline. As I stirred the creamer into my mug, my email chimed. Subject: Don't do this. From Evelyn Bennett. I almost didn't open it, but morbid curiosity always wins. Eleanor, you've made your point. Please don't ruin your sister's life. We all say things in anger, but this is your blood. Take the high road. Be the woman I raised you to be. Be the woman she raised me to be. The one who stayed quiet, the one who gave and gave until there was nothing left. But I wasn't even mad yet until I scrolled down. Evelyn had tried to copy the message to Charlotte only, but she'd failed to BCC. Every cousin, every aunt, every uncle. Dozens of family emails were now staring at the same thinly veiled manipulation I'd swallowed for years. The replies came fast. Aunt Linda, wait. Ruin? What's happening? Uncle Martin. Evelyn? What do you mean take the high road? What did Eleanor do? Cousin Joy? This doesn't sound like Eleanor at all. Someone explain. I sat back in my chair, blinking at the screen. Evelyn had cracked her own porcelain mask. 5 minutes later, a new email arrived. This time directly to me. You're being cruel. Charlotte is spiraling. She hasn't stopped crying. If Nathan calls it off, that's on you. I didn't respond. I didn't even think about it. I opened my notes app and typed one line. No one forced her to lie. Then I deleted her email. Outside, the rain started. Just a light drizzle, but steady. Across the country in Napa, the weather was likely perfect. Vineyard skies, polished stone patios, champagne fountains. But in the bridal suite, not so much. Cousin sent me a message. Evelyn's crying. Charlotte is screaming at the coordinator. No one knows where Nathan is. He missed the rehearsal. You okay? I stared at that last line. You okay? Was I? I hadn't smiled. I hadn't cried. I hadn't done anything theatrical. I had told the truth and stepped away. And yet, everyone was panicking like I'd set a bomb under the cake table. Another message came through seconds later. He's gone. He left. You won. I put the phone down slowly, walked over to the window, watched the drops glide down the glass like little trails of freedom. I didn't feel triumphant, just weightless. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't cruelty. It was the natural consequence of people who'd built their lives on lies and expected everyone else to keep holding the scaffolding. I whispered it softly just to the room. This isn't a win. It's just justice. They wanted me quiet. I gave them the truth. Even after I whispered the word justice, I stayed seated on the edge of my bed, staring into nothing. The air in my apartment had stilled like it knew something was shifting. Something unfixable. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Nora lit up my screen. Play this when you're alone. Brace yourself. No context, just a voice memo attachment. I slid off the bed, crossed to my desk, and put in my earbuds before pressing play. It started with laughter, wine glasses clinking, silverware clattering, and then a familiar voice slicing through the noise. Evelyn. She's always been resentful, never fit in, never had the grace Charlotte has. Honestly, she's not well. You'll see. The room around me disappeared. Then Charlotte chimed in, sounding drunk on either champagne or attention. I mean, who does that to their own sister? She's sick. Like clinically, honestly, she needs help. The audio cut off, but the damage didn't. They weren't just trying to dismiss me. They were rewriting me. My stomach turned, not with sadness, but with the sharp twist of fury only betrayal can sharpen. I replayed the clip again, saved it, then backed it up in 3 places. They needed to discredit me, I whispered, because they knew I was right. That evening, just as I sat down to eat, my phone rang. Evelyn. I hesitated for one long second before answering. She opened with that same syrupy tone she always used before making someone else the villain. Charlotte hasn't stopped crying, Eleanor. She hasn't eaten. I hope you're happy. I said nothing. Her voice dropped half an octave. You think you've exposed something? If you don't fix this, if you don't walk it all back, I'll tell the family what they already suspect. A pause. That you've always struggled. That you're unstable. I'll tell them this is another one of your episodes. I will protect this family from your chaos, Eleanor. Even if I have to ruin you to do it. I stared out the window while I tapped the red record button on another phone. I didn't defend myself. I didn't argue. Let her talk. Let her bury herself. Once she finished her tirade, I hung up without a word. I sent the recording to someone I trusted, a former college friend now working in legal risk management. I attached a short message, contingency, just in case. This wasn't about blackmail. It wasn't even about revenge anymore. It was about making sure that if anyone ever tried to say I imagined it all, I'd have proof. All my life, I bent myself into the shape of someone they could love. Someone useful, quiet, manageable. No more. I'd spent decades protecting a family that never once protected me. I was done bleeding for people who'd hand me the knife next. The fire had started. I just made sure everyone saw who struck the match. Later that night, another text from Nora lit up the screen. Aunt Lisa just played your mom's voicemail at dinner. Everyone heard what she said about you. She didn't even flinch. Seconds later, another message. Grandma stood up and said, "You made your bed, Evelyn." Then she left the table. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. For the first time in what felt like years, I smiled. Not because it was over, but because the house they built on lies was finally crumbling without me in it. I whispered into the quiet, "Let them burn their own kingdom down." I just lit the match. The day she lost it all and I found myself. I set my coffee down on the small table beside the balcony chair. The morning air unusually still for a Monday. I could feel it. The silence wasn't ordinary. It was the kind that follows after something massive has cracked wide open. My phone buzzed with a message from Nora. Just one word, fireworks. A second later, another one came through. He's gone. Nathan left. He left a note, but no one's read it yet. I didn't smile. Not right away. Instead, I stared out at the city skyline. Somewhere hundreds of miles away in Napa Valley, music had started playing for a ceremony that no longer had a groom. Back at the venue, the guests were already seated, fans fluttering, champagne flutes sparkling under string lights. Some fanned their faces in the early summer heat. Others glanced around, puzzled, as the music looped for a third time with no sign of the man of the hour. Groomsmen began exchanging nervous glances. Then one jogged back toward the suites. When he returned, the look on his face told everyone what his words confirmed. Nathan was gone. In the bridal suite, chaos was a living, breathing thing. Charlotte screamed as if someone had taken oxygen from the room. She hurled her bouquet against the mirror, shattering both petals and reflection. "You said it wouldn't matter," she screeched at Evelyn. "You said Eleanor was bluffing." Evelyn tried to console her, reaching out with trembling hands, but Charlotte slapped them away. "You promised me this would go away. You told me she was just bitter." A hush fell over the room, broken only by the retreating steps of her bridesmaids, awkwardly pretending to busy themselves. Aunt Lisa leaned in, whispering just loud enough to be heard. She didn't sound like she was bluffing. Evelyn said nothing. Back in Seattle, I stayed seated, legs tucked under me on the couch. I didn't need to watch it unfold. I could feel it, the way a long-ignored truth finally commands the attention it deserves. Nathan had been quiet since the email. No responses, no reactions. But I knew silence isn't always absence. Sometimes it's preparation. And then Nora texted again. "He left a letter. Your name is in it." My heart skipped once, just once. Hours later, that letter made its way into Evelyn's trembling hands, folded neatly inside the pocket of Nathan's tuxedo jacket. She had demanded someone find it after noticing he hadn't taken anything with him. She opened it with a snap like she expected to see excuses. Instead, she read somewhere along the way, "I started loving the idea of Charlotte more than Charlotte herself. Eleanor didn't ruin anything. She gave me clarity. I hope one day you'll see her, not through the eyes of shame, but through the lens of truth." Evelyn crumpled it immediately, but this time she didn't say a word. No spin, no drama, just quiet rage twisting in her expression as everything she'd built on a foundation of lies began to collapse. As the sun dipped low over Seattle, I returned to the balcony, this time with a glass of wine. I watched the golden haze stretch over the water and let the silence settle around me again. Nora sent one final text that night. Charlotte locked herself in the suite. Aunt Lisa's trying to keep the guests from leaving. Your mom is pacing. And Grandma said she's staying another night but in a different hotel. I typed back, told you. It wasn't sarcasm, just the kind of truth that doesn't require volume. They had screamed, lied, and twisted every version of reality to keep me in the shadows. But here I was, not because I yelled louder, but because I stood still while they spun out of control. For years, they told me to lower my voice. Today, I was heard without ever raising it. Later that night, after brushing my teeth and tidying up the kitchen, I sat down in front of my laptop. I opened a new document. The cursor blinked against the white screen like it was holding its breath. Title: When They Said I Didn't Belong. I typed the first sentence slowly. I was always the villain in their version of the story, so I wrote my own. And then I sat back and let it sink in. I had lost them, but I had finally found me. Peace looks different now. After I typed the final sentence, I closed the laptop and sat still, letting the weight of everything I'd carried, and finally laid down, settle. A quiet breeze rolled in from the cracked window, lifting the edge of a nearby curtain. For once, I didn't feel the need to chase clarity or closure. I had written my truth. It didn't need an audience to be real. 2 weeks passed. Seattle's summer had that slow golden glow like the city itself was exhaling. On a Wednesday morning, I met Nora at our favorite cafe tucked just off Pine Street. She was already there, 2 oat milk lattes waiting between us. I slid into the seat across from her, nodding a silent thanks. She leaned in. Charlotte's brand deals dropped her. The sponsorship with the bridal skincare line? Gone. And the wellness tea one, too. I stirred my coffee. Figures. Truth tends to wrinkle filters. Nora let out a soft laugh. Evelyn isn't talking to half the family anymore. Grandma Clara told her she should apologize. She hung up on her. I didn't respond, not because I didn't have thoughts, but because I'd already said everything that needed to be said in silence, in action, in clarity, and it was enough. Later that afternoon, back at my apartment, I sat cross-legged on the hardwood floor, surrounded by half-sealed boxes. My lease was up in a week. I'd landed a new job as a senior editor for a publishing house based in Vermont. Fully remote, full creative control, full freedom. My phone buzzed, a voicemail. I recognized the number instantly. I hadn't heard from Evelyn since the wedding imploded. I pressed play. I don't know who you think you are anymore, but you've broken this family. Are you proud? That voice used to sting like salt. Now it felt distant, like a performance I'd already walked out on. I hit delete. No second listen, no second guessing. I stood, walked into the bedroom, and opened the closet. Tucked on the top shelf was an old photo of me and Charlotte, arms slung around each other at a pumpkin patch. I studied it for a moment, then placed it in the donation box. Some things weren't meant to be burned. Some things just didn't need to come with you. As evening settled in, I sat at the kitchen island and pulled out a worn journal. I hadn't used it in over a year. I flipped to a blank page and began writing. Dear Charlotte, you always wanted to be adored. I only ever wanted to be respected. And now, for the first time, I finally respect myself. I capped the pen, folded the letter, slipped it into the back of the journal. No stamp, no envelope. It wasn't meant to be sent. Vermont greeted me with cool mornings and green hills that seemed to stretch into forever. My new place was modest, an A-frame cabin just outside Brattleboro. Enough space for a bookshelf-lined office, a proper reading nook, and morning coffee under the pines. 1 week after moving in, I unpacked my laptop and set it on the writing desk facing the window. I opened a new file. The blinking cursor met me like an old friend. Title: This Isn't Revenge. It's a reclamation. I typed the first line. They called me bitter, difficult, broken. Maybe I was, but I was also honest, and honest women are hard to swallow. I paused, breathing in the stillness. Somewhere down the hill, wind chimes played a low, tinkling tune. No one was shouting here. No one was lying. No one was rewriting my story. I was no longer trying to be part of a family that built walls when they promised bridges. And I wasn't burning bridges either. I just chose never to cross them again. Sometimes the people who are supposed to protect us are the ones who hurt us the most. But healing doesn't always look like revenge. It looks like choosing peace, walking away, and writing your own ending. Have you ever had to walk away from family to find yourself? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. And if this one moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories just like this. Your next favorite might be just one click away.